Hi, welcome to MediatorPodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things mediation, negotiation, and collaboration. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online valuation, divorce, and mediation services in St. Louis, Missouri. In this week's episode, we will discuss family mediation, a unique way to get divorced, with Daryl Weinman. She is a family law attorney and mediator in Austin, Texas. Daryl has been board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization since 2000, an honor granted to less than 1% of Texas attorneys. She's also part of the Austin Bar Association in the Alternative Dispute Resolution section and the Texas Family Law Foundation. Another interesting thing is she's a member of American Academy of Certified Financial Litigators. In those types of situations, where you're kind of hearing all, I think everybody is usually hesitant to do a lot of work in divorce because they're just like, I don't want to listen to everybody talk and be so emotional and things like that. But sometimes it's the first time they've gone through this, so it's expected. But how do you remain neutral throughout the mediation when you do hear a lot of these different stories? Like, do you have any tips of how you can kind of stop the implicit bias, stop all of those things that we have as glasses on as mediators? Do you have any ways that you deal with it?
So, like I said, I let them vent for usually the first hour in each room. Let them tell me their story, let them cry, keep tissues around, also keep little healthy snacks around, like that's, but I let them tell me their story and tell me what's important to them, why they have hurt feelings. And I try to be really empathetic. And so I have been told, I think, by a lot of them that they think I'm on their side. And of course, if I'm on their side in both rooms, great, because then they both trust me to actually get this settled for them. But that's what I try to do. I try to let them think. And I do. I can generally see both sides. If someone is being completely unrealistic, I try to find even a creative way to tell them that and say, I totally hear what you're saying. I agree that your position makes sense, but Texas law doesn't see it that way. And if you don't settle here and you end up in court, it's just the judges aren't going to see it that way. So let's come up with like the best plan that you could live with that falls under the way a judge might do it. And, because that's going to be your best option here. I've had people say, well, why don't we just look at my net worth and her net worth and split it? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What net worth? And they have all these calculations and they're showing me. I said, this is really creative. And I can respect that. If you end up in court, judge isn't going to look at any of that because it doesn't exist in law, which is where we are stuck. So, I try to see it from their point of view and kind of give them some perspective. I do a lot of, risk analysis with them and go, okay, if you end up in court, this is your worst day in court, this is your best day in court, you're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle. And here at mediation, you have control over which pieces, like which is the most important thing to you. Is it more the time with the kids? Is it more the money? Is it the house? Is it the retirement? Like, what is it? Because you have control over that. And maybe the other room doesn't care about the same thing you care about. So you can get what you want and give them what they want, and we get this settled.
Right. I mean, I think that it always seems more complex, even with complex financial situations involved. It seems more complex because there is a layer of anger and history, right? Because of something that happened in the past, and it kind of clouds your vision. But then I think that people will come to the situation and say, well, they need to buy me out of the house and I'll buy them out of the retirement and then they'll buy me out of the car. And so it's really just trying to understand like how we actually look at the financial picture, which I don't think people totally understand. Do you want to kind of walk them through what that process looks like?
Well, when people think, now, first of all, in Texas or in any community property state, we don't necessarily split things 50-50. Like nowhere in the family code does it say 50-50. It says fair and equitable. And, a lot of people, most judges will look at that as pretty close to 50-50, but they look at other factors too as to, who has the ability to earn more, what are the assets, what are the tax implications, all that kind of stuff. But people have it stuck in their head 50-50. So a lot of times when they come in with these spreadsheets or their lists or whatever, they've got every asset split down the middle. And I'm like, no, we're not splitting every asset down the middle. You take the entire estate and split that down the middle, or however we're going to split it. But it's going to be, you get this, she gets that, you get this, and she gets that. And then you take usually what is the most liquid asset, whatever it is, whether it's an investment account, a retirement account, not usually the house, unless they're planning to sell it. And that's the number that you can balance and say, okay, you each have all this list of assets, but you have way more on this side, so we're going to move a little over. And I try to explain that that's how we're going to do it. It's not let's cut each thing down the middle. Because that doesn't make any sense. And then explaining to them too about with retirement accounts, because they're like, yeah, but you can't touch my retirement account because I'm going to get all these penalties. And no, not in a divorce case, you're not. You can move it over, and I can explain to them about qualified domestic relations orders and how we can move retirement assets with no tax implications. And then Texas doesn't have much in the way of alimony like most states. It's very hard to get alimony here, but that is something that we can also play with in mediation, because especially for somebody who, like a stay-at-home mom, 20-year stay-at-home mom who's not been managing assets, has not been managing money, this is going to be all new to her. Maybe you don't want to give her a big lump sum of money that she's not necessarily going to be great at handling. Instead, he can pay alimony. And it used to be, of course, they changed the law on that too, but it used to be it was a tax write-off. So it was easier to use in negotiation and mediation and say, look, if you, instead of just giving her this lump sum of money, you pay her out over time, that'll help her get on her feet, get a budget, learn how to manage money, and you get a tax break. Okay, well, the tax break part went away, but we can still do it that way, and we can call it alimony, and we can have it withheld from his income. So then she feels like I'm definitely going to get it. And so there's so much more creativity that we can do in mediation. Because and I explained to them, if you end up in court, you don't qualify for alimony in Texas. You're not going to get it. Here's your one way to get it. But what you were mentioning too about the people who don't necessarily understand their finances, generally there is one person who knows way more than the other. And so it is helpful to sometimes have someone like you in the room with the person who's not as financially savvy to explain to them, this is the difference between a retirement asset and a non-retirement asset. You really can't afford the house, as much as I know it's important, you love it, but let's look at what you can afford, and you can still stay in the school district, or, kind of talking them through things they never had to think about before.